In the spring of 1901, a Greek sponge diver named Elias Stadiaites surfaces off the barren coast of Antikythera and reports something impossible. He tells the captain he has seen a heap of dead, naked people scattered across the seafloor. The captain pulls him up. Stadiaites is disoriented, possibly suffering from decompression sickness. But when they send another diver down, he returns with an arm, a bronze arm. Marble statues, it turns out. A Roman shipwreck, 2,000 years old, carrying plundered Greek art back to Rome. Over the following months, Greek authorities recover vases, sculptures, jewelry. And among the corroded lumps hauled up from 50 meters of depth sits one unremarkable piece of bronze, fused with limestone, a shoebox. It is the size of a shoebox, no one pays attention to it. It is logged, catalogued, and placed on a shelf in Athens. Then, in 1902, the crust begins to crack on its own as it dries. And inside, visible through the split, is something that has no business being there, a bronze gear. Precise, machine-toothed. We are still catching up to what it was. This is the Antikythera Mechanism, a device built 2,000 years ago that modern scientists have called up the world's first analog computer. And for more than a century, we have been trying to understand how a civilization that had not yet invented the printing press managed to build a machine this sophisticated. The answer keeps slipping further from us the closer we look. Let me show you why. When the mechanism was first examined in 1902, archaeologists assumed it was some kind of navigational astrolabe, common enough in the ancient world. But as cleaning revealed more detail, that explanation collapsed. The device was far too intricate. It contained not one gear, but dozens. Were interlocking bronze wheels of different sizes, some no larger than a coin, fitted together with a precision that required tooling we did not believe the ancient Greeks possessed. To machine gears this fine, you need lathes, cutting tools, and an understanding of differential mechanics. We had dated that knowledge to the Renaissance, 1,500 years later. The first scientist to publish a serious analysis was a British historian of science named Derek J. de Solla Price. In the early 1960s, Price spent years reconstructing the mechanism from X-ray photographs. What he found was a gear train designed to model the heavens, not just to track the sun and moon, but to calculate their positions with mathematical accuracy. Price published his findings in Scientific American in 1964, and his conclusion was direct. This was not a simple timepiece. It was a machine built to perform complex astronomical calculations mechanically, using principles that would not reappear in Europe until clockmakers in the 14th century began constructing similar devices. But even Price could not fully decode it. Too much of the mechanism had corroded or been lost. What remained was a puzzle of fragmented bronze plates, illegible inscriptions, and gears whose purpose we could only guess. Then, in 2005, a team of researchers returned to the mechanism with new tools. They used a technique called X-ray computed tomography, the same imaging technology hospitals use for CT scans, but adapted for archaeology. The machine could see through 2,000 years of corrosion, layer by layer, and map the interior structure of the bronze in 3 dimensions. The team was led by Tony Freeth, a mathematician and filmmaker, along with researchers from Cardiff University, the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, and imaging specialists from Hewlett-Packard. What they found inside rewrote what we thought we knew. The mechanism was not a single calculator. It was an entire cosmological model, housed in a wooden case no larger than a modern encyclopedia. On the front was a dial showing the zodiac and an Egyptian calendar. On the back were 2 spiral dials that tracked lunar cycles, eclipse predictions, and the dates of the ancient Olympic Games. The user could turn a hand crank on the side, and the gears inside would rotate in precise ratios, moving pointers across the dials to show where the sun, moon, and planets would be on any given date. You could set it to 5 years in the future and read the position of the moon as accurately as if you had done the mathematics by hand. And we know this because the device still contains instruction manual. inscribed directly onto the bronze plates, in Greek letters so small they are nearly invisible to the naked eye, is a user guide. It explains what each dial represents, how to read the scales, and what astronomical events the mechanism predicts. Freeth and his team spent years translating those inscriptions using high-resolution surface imaging, and they published their findings in the journal Nature in 2006. The manual is not complete. Roughly 30% of the text is still missing or illegible, but what survives is extraordinary. It describes a machine designed not for navigation or timekeeping in the practical sense, but for education and demonstration. A device to show, with physical gears and bronze pointers, how the cosmos operates. Let me be precise about what that means. This was not a mystical or symbolic object. The Antikythera Mechanism performed real calculations using mechanical logic. The gears were cut to specific ratios based on astronomical periods the Greeks had already measured. The lunar calendar dial, for example, used a 19-year cycle known as the Metonic cycle, which synchronizes the solar year with the phases of the moon. That cycle was well known to Greek astronomers by the 4th century BC. But knowing the cycle is one thing. Building a machine that models it, mechanically, with bronze gears, is another. To make the mechanism work, the unknown builder had to solve a problem that stumped European clockmakers for over a millennium, because it does not move at a constant speed. Its orbit is elliptical, so it speeds up when it is closer to Earth and slows down when it is farther away. This irregularity is called the lunar anomaly, and to model it mechanically require what engineers call a variable gear train. You need gears that can change their effective ratio as they turn. The Greeks did not have differential gears as we define them today. But the Antikythera mechanism contains something functionally identical. It uses a pin and slot mechanism, where one gear drives another not by teeth alone, but through a moving pin that slides within a slot, creating a variable output. That solution would not appear again in recorded histories until the 14th century, when Islamic and European astronomers independently reinvented it for astrolapses and planetary clocks. So we have a device that should not exist, built by people whose names we do not know, using techniques we cannot fully replicate even now. And here is where the mystery deepens. In 2021, researchers at University College London published a new reconstruction of the mechanism in the journal Scientific Reports. Using all the data gathered from CT scans and surface imaging, along with the surviving inscriptions, they built a complete digital model of how the front dial system must have worked. Their model revealed something we had not fully appreciated before. The mechanism was not just tracking the sun and moon. It was modeling the motion of all 5 planets visible to the naked eye: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Each planet had its own gear train, calculating its position in the sky according to ancient Greek astronomical theory. But here is the problem. To model planetary motion mechanically, you need an enormous number of gears. The researchers at UCL estimated that the complete mechanism, if it included full planetary displays, would have required at least 30 interlocking gears, possibly more. We have fragments of 30 bronze gears in the surviving pieces, but the way they fit together is still partially unknown. We can see what the device was trying to do. We have the output dials, the inscriptions, the instructions, but the internal mechanics that drove the planetary calculations are missing. Either they were lost when the ship went down, or they corroded beyond recovery in 2,000 years of seawater. So we are left with a paradox. We have a device that demonstrates a level of mechanical and astronomical sophistication that no other artifact from the ancient world comes close to matching, and yet it appears to be unique. No other Greek or Roman mechanism like it has ever been found. Not a prototype, not a successor model, not even a written description from an ancient author that clearly refers to such a machine. The Roman writer Cicero mentions a device built by the Greek mathematician Archimedes that could model the heavens, and the engineer Hero of Alexandria describes various automated machines in his writings. But none of those descriptions match the complexity of what we pulled from the seafloor off Antikythera. If this technology existed, and if it was used widely enough to be placed on a cargo ship bound for Rome, then where are the others? One possible answer is that they were too valuable to discard. Bronze was expensive, and complex bronze mechanisms even more so. If a gear broke, you would melt the device down and reuse the metal rather than throw it into a midden heap where archaeologists might one day find it. Shipwrecks are the exception. They preserve things that would otherwise vanish. And even then, we nearly missed this one. The mechanism spent 2,000 years encrusted in stone at the bottom of the Aegean, unrecognizable as anything but a lump of corroded metal. If it had not cracked open on its own in that Athens museum, we might still think it was ballast. But there is another possibility, harder to verify but supported by the evidence we do have. The Antikythera Mechanism may represent the peak of a tradition that died out. Not because the knowledge was lost in a single catastrophic event, but because it was never written down in a form that survived. Greek artisans and engineers worked within guild traditions, where technical skills were taught directly, master to apprentice, rather than recorded in manuals. If the workshop that built the mechanism was destroyed, or if the line of apprentices was broken by migration or simple economic collapse, the specific techniques required to machine those gears could vanish within a generation. The theory survives in the astronomical texts. The mechanics do not, and we see hints of this all over the ancient world. The Romans built concrete that has lasted 2,000 years, stronger in some cases than modern formulations. We know they used volcanic ash and seawater in the mix, and we have analyzed the chemistry in detail. But the exact proportions, the curing techniques, the unwritten expertise let a Roman engineer know by feel when the mixture was correct. That knowledge is gone. The Antikythera Mechanism may be the same kind of loss. We have the artifact. We have reverse-engineered its logic. But the living tradition that produced it, the accumulated skill and tooling and workshop culture, is extinct. Let me bring this back to the object itself, because there is one more detail that makes the whole thing even stranger. The mechanism was built to be portable. The wooden case that housed it, now rotted away, left impressions in the corrosion. It had a handle. You could carry it. This was not a permanent observatory instrument bolted to a stone platform. It was meant to be transported, demonstrated, perhaps sold, which raises a question we still do not have a clean answer for. Who was the audience? Who in the ancient world needed a portable mechanical computer that could predict eclipses and track the Olympic Games? The most common theory is that it was an educational tool used by philosophers or lecturers to teach astronomy. Imagine a traveling scholar arriving in Athens or Alexandria, opening a wooden case, and showing a crowd of students how the cosmos operates by simply turning a crank. The gears move, the pointers glide across the dials, and the heavens unfold in bronze. That fits what we know about Greek intellectual culture, where demonstration and visualization were central to teaching. But it also suggests that this technology was known, and possibly even common, among a certain educated class. Which brings us back to the same uncomfortable question. If it was common, where are the others? One shipwreck, one device, 2,000 years of silence. Here is what we know with certainty. The Antikythera Mechanism was built sometime in the late 2nd or early 1st century BC, likely on the island of Rhodes, which was a center of astronomical and mechanical scholarship. We know this from the style of the Greek inscriptions and from certain astronomical parameters encoded in the gears, which match the geographic latitude of Rhodes. The device was being transported, probably as cargo or personal property, aboard a Roman ship that sank off Antikythera around 70 to 60 BC. It lay on the seafloor for 2,001 years. When it was recovered in 1901, it was unrecognizable. When it cracked open in 1902, it was incomprehensible. And today, after more than a century of study using the most advanced imaging technology we possess, it is still not fully explained. We have decoded roughly 80% of its function. The remaining 15%, particularly the planetary gear trains, are still speculative. Researchers continue to build reconstructions, testing different configurations of gears to see which models match the surviving fragments. Some of those reconstructions work. They turn, they calculate, they predict. But we do not know if they match what the original builder intended, because we do not have the complete machine. And that is the deepest part of the mystery. Not that the Greeks could build this. We know they had the mathematics, the astronomy, and clearly the mechanical skill. The mystery is that they built it once, or at least we have found it once, and then the knowledge dissolved. No medieval European manuscript describes a device like this. No Islamic scholar references it. No Chinese engineer, despite their long tradition of Mechanical clocks and astronomical instruments, built anything equivalent until centuries later. The Antikythera Mechanism stands alone, a singular artifact that suggests an entire lost tradition of precision engineering. You are looking at a gap in the record. Not the kind of gap left by a fire in a library or a sacked city, but the kind left by ordinary forgetting, by workshops that closed, by apprentices who moved to other trades, by knowledge that was never written down because everyone assumed someone else already knew it. And 2,000 years later, we pull a lump of bronze from the seafloor and realize we lost something we did not know we had. That is what the Antikythera Mechanism represents. Not just a machine, but a reminder that progress is not a straight line. That human knowledge can peak, plat, and vanish, not through catastrophe, but through simple neglect. The Greeks who built this device understood mechanical computation in a way that would not be matched until the Renaissance, 1,500 years later. They encoded that understanding in bronze. And then, for reasons we are still trying to map, they stopped. Mechanism sits now behind glass in the National Archaeological Museum in Athens. The fragments are displayed in a climate-controlled case, each piece labeled and photographed. Visitors walk past it every day. Most see a collection of green, corroded bronze discs. A few stop to read the placard and learn what it is. And a very small number stand there long enough to feel the full weight of what they are looking at. A machine that should not exist, built by people whose names we will never know, representing a technology that humanity had to invent twice. If you want to see more of what the record keeps hidden, click the video on screen now and make sure to subscribe.